Hey, I'm Noir Heart. This is Noir Heart Creations, and this is also my first YouTube video ever. What I'm wearing right now is the whole project I'm going to be sharing with you guys. So, this project started off with two things: a historic 18th century skirt pattern and a random baby blanket I found at a thrift store. And I know that sounds weird, but I swear it'll make sense as we keep going. I hope. So I was scrolling YouTube and I found Ash LG's YouTube channel and their video called The Zero Waste 18th Century Skirt That Always Fits. Beginner friendly, no pattern needed. That was exactly what I was looking for. I highly recommend you checking out their channel and their video. The tutorial was super easy to follow, and I'll make sure to add the card here and I'll link it down below. What I really liked about this skirt is that it was super easy to make and it was a split skirt style. So that means that there's two panels, the front and the back, and there's no zippers, no buttons. You just tie it in the front, tie it in the back, and you've got a skirt. It's a lot more flexible than a zipper, than a button, and so I thought it was going to be perfect for this project. For the most part, I just followed Ash LG's tutorial to make the basic split skirt, but there was a few personal details I decided to add because I wanted to make it a little more fun and exciting and modern from back when it was made in the 18th century. This was my first time pleating, and I've been kind of afraid of pleats. Just, I don't know, they seem really precise, really hard to do, but I decided to choose a box pleat. I did about 2 inches per pleat. I've got a couple in the front and a couple in the back. The other big addition I did to this project was to add some heart cutouts in the bottom. So this fabric has been sitting in my stash for a really long time, and the best part is I got it completely for free. You wouldn't know it, but this cotton fabric is actually a bed set. My best friend gave it to me a while ago from like someone's grandparent or something that didn't want it. It was all in the original packaging, and she knew I would probably use it for something one day because I take fabric from wherever I can get it. And she was right. With this fabric, it's pink and white stripes. It just looks super cute, super sweet. So I thought I really wanted to play on that cuteness and just go heavy with it. And that's where the heart cutouts came from. So to create the heart cutouts, the first thing I did was just draw on some scrap paper, whatever size heart I wanted. Once I had that, I cut that out, and that was going to be my heart stencil. From there, I grabbed some scrap fabric. I cut out squares that were bigger than my stencil, and I made sure to finish the edges. Finish those off however you want. All I did was just like fold them over twice and put a running stitch on top. Once I had my squares of scrap fabric and their edges were all finished, I made sure to trace the hearts onto the fabric. From there, I placed that fabric on the right side of my skirt fabric, which for me was this stripe material on top. I then traced the heart with a running stitch using my sewing machine. Once I got all the way around and had sewed that heart, I started cutting it out. You literally just go in the middle and with some scissors and start cutting. Make sure you're close to the stitch line, but don't cut into the stitches. When you get to the point of the heart on top, or if you do any points at all, I cut it horizontally, but make sure that you're not cutting the stitches at all. You want to be as close to the stitches without physically cutting them. From there, I took it, folded it inside, and then I ironed it flat. And that's all it took to get the heart cut out. And from there, I was feeling really good about the skirt. So I have been doing this in the 2 panels, and I was ready to get those panels together when, yeah, I got the norovirus. So basically what happened is I just got really sick really suddenly, and I was sick for 4 days, and I had to put the project on hold. By the time I got back to the project, I still wasn't feeling like recording or being on camera, so I was still feeling icky. So I don't have any more video of the rest of the skirt. But again, I mostly just followed that original tutorial anyway. So I, again, highly recommend you check that out. So to finish the waistband, I made the front panels tie wide and I made the back panels tie just thin. And the reason for this is because the back panels tie is actually tied under this waistband. The reason I made the front tie wider than the back tie was because I wanted to have a cute little bow in the back as shown here. The other thing is for these ties, if you're ever trying to make the split skirt, you can really use whatever ribbon or anything you have just lying around the house. I did decide to make ties out of the matching fabric just because I literally only had ribbon in like black, which would show through no matter what. So, if you're working on like a pink skirt and you've got an orange ribbon, that'll probably work. No one will see it if you need to do something in a pinch. The last thing I added for a personal touch was just some lace at the hem and trim of the skirt. The lace actually was just sitting in my stash because originally I had attempted to dye it purple for a cosplay project, and of course it ended up pink. So I had no use for it. It's just been sitting in my stash for years. And luckily, I had the perfect amount, not just for the hem of my skirt, but also for the shirt, which means it matches. Okay, now let's move to the top. So the top was a bit more challenging than the skirt for me, only because I had to draft them myself. So I was at my local St. Vincent de Paul thrift store, which is my favorite so far, and I happened across this cute pink and green baby blanket. It was on sale. I know I paid less than $3 for it. I think it was about $1.50. I got instantly inspired. I thought it would work pretty good with this cutesy little split skirt I had just made. Now, the catch was I bought a baby blanket. So that's not a lot of fabric. And then I also kind of made it worse for myself. So, going along with the split skirt idea, I thought, ooh, I'll just make an easy little wrap top with some ties and just tie it around. It'll have a neck hole. That's it. That does not work for blanket material. It is way too thick. It was just bunching up all weird. Dumb. No, did not work. But I decided not even to check on like some scrap fabric. No, no, no. I went in and cut a neck hole right in the middle of this dang little baby blanket. And then I realized it wouldn't work. So now I have this tiny piece of fabric with a neck hole already in it, and I gotta work with that. Luckily, I had an old shirt that was just laying around that I've been meaning to cut up and use as like a shirt pattern for the future anyway. So it was on to plan B. So I take this t shirt, cut it up, I cut it into the front and the back of the shirt, which is going to now be my pattern for this shirt. And they look pretty different because what I did was I took this original shirt pattern and I said, I envision this to be a lot more drapey, have a lot more fabric. I don't know why this would be drapey. That makes no sense, but I'm doing it anyway. Whatever. Anyway, I want it to be more drapey. I wanted to have more fabric, more volume. So all I did was just increase that size. I also added some side panels. You can see them right here. They're just under each armpit. Once I cut everything out, I ended up having my front panel, my back panel for this top, and then my two side panels. I sewed the front and the back together first at the shoulder seams. That's typically what I do. And then I attached the side seam panels. From there, I basically had a vest, so no sleeves. I was able to try it on and kind of see how that looks. And I was hoping from there we get a little more inspired to figure out what type of sleeves I'd want. But when I tried it on, I noticed a problem. The armholes I made were way too big. They were giant. I didn't know what to do because everything was already cut out, everything was sewed together, and like I said, I didn't have any more fabric to work with. So, what I did is I just grabbed a needle and thread and I started hand stitching around the armpit. And then I pulled and gathered that diameter to shrink it, which worked. I will say this fabric, because it's like a blanket material, it has a stretch to it, which means it's forgiving. So any of the puckering or so that came from me shrinking that armhole using a gather and a running stitch, you can't really see too bad. If you did this with a stiff fabric or one that has no stretch, I think that might be more visible. Not entirely sure. But for this stretchy fabric, it worked. And that's all that mattered. So crisis averted. So then I went to the next step, which was finally putting the sleeves on. For the sleeves, I decided to cut out rectangles of whatever of this fabric I had left over. I added what I had left over of the lace to the ends because I knew I wanted to have the lace all throughout the outfit. And then to make this ruffle, I decided to add elastic using a zigzag stitch on the inside of the sleeve along the outside cuff. This piece of elastic was about a foot, and you can see it's still kind of loose on me right there. Once the lace and the elastic were attached onto my rectangle, I sewed that into a tube and then I attached that onto my body. And then I had everything but the neck. For the neck, I realized I was going to need to add a slit, this slit right here, in order to make it big enough to go over my head. So this is stretchy fabric, but because of the collar I added, that removes the stretch, and therefore I'm going to need more room to put my head through. Once I cut just this basic slit, I used some leftover ribbon I had, just like tiny pieces, in order to finish that seam so that there's no raw edges showing. The final touch for the shirt was the Peter Pan collar, which I thought was going to add the perfect vintage vibe. I pulled out my trusty Better Homes and Gardens vintage sewing book that I literally got for $1 at my local library book sale, and it had the perfect instructions for how to make this type of collar. I'll show it right here, but I basically just followed those instructions. I use interfacing white fabric, and then the top part is actually some leftover lace from an old curtain. I also tried to dye purple for the same cosplay project that also turned out pink, that also just sat in my scrap bin for forever. Anyway, this is a curtain. I thought that the lace on here, it was a little different than the lace I was adding for the trim of the shirt, but it was pretty much the exact same color, and I thought I was going to tie everything together. All it needed was the perfect button, and it was done. But I also wanted to talk about some improvements I would make on this outfit, the whole thing, if I were ever to make it again. First off, I wish I had added interfacing to the waistband. So I added a top stitch to both the top and the bottom of the waistband to add some structure. To be honest, that is fine. It's working, it's fine, it does add some structure. However, I do still get a little bit of wrinkling. If I would have taken that extra step and just put some interfacing inside that waistband, it would have been a lot more stiff and cleaner, and I wouldn't be getting these wrinkles that I'm getting right now. The next thing I would have changed was in the sleeves. Basically just that elastic. I said I added about a foot of elastic to get it to look like this. Well, you can see it's still pretty loose. I wish I actually would have added a couple inches less of elastic so that it would have been tighter around my upper arm. And that also would have made it ruffle a little more. The last mistake I made was in the collar. Overall, really, really, really happy with how this collar looks. However, if I flip up the collar, you see the interfacing, and it's not supposed to be like that. The interfacing is supposed to be between the outer fabric and the lining fabric, it's supposed to be sandwiched in between. I got confused with my white fabric, so it's the thing that's on the outside. Not really a big deal, no one's gonna see it. I just know that it's a mistake and I wouldn't do it like that next time. Overall, I'm super happy though with the whole outfit. I mean, all I did was pay $1.50 for this blanket. Otherwise, I made it all from free or stuff I just had lying around at home, and it's pretty cute. So since this is my first YouTube video ever and my first channel ever, I just wanted to introduce myself. I've been sewing since I was a kid, back when I used to make clothes for my cat, of all things. I know that's a little weird, but I love my animals, what can I say? You might be able to hear my dog in the background chewing on a bone, but I'm not going to stop him because he's happy. Over time, I did start moving from making clothes for cats to working on human clothes. I started learning how to alter my clothes, how to mend them, how to keep what I have and not have to continue buying new, how to update what I have, how to prevent myself from spending more money, because I didn't have a lot, but I still wanted to keep up with the latest fashions, just like any other teenager. I've always been passionate about using thrifted and repurposed materials, from notions to tools to fabric, anything I can get my hands on. I hate seeing things go in the garbage that I know are just going to waste away in landfills. So I figure if all this material's out there, why not use it? Currently, I've challenged myself for 2025 to not buy anything new that's going to go into any of my garments for the whole year. That means no new notions, no new fabric, nothing. I'm just going to be going off of my stash and whatever I can find for free or at a thrift store. I think the cost of getting into sewing can be really intimidating for people, and I want to show them that it really doesn't have to be that expensive. But whatever it is, a tablecloth, an old blanket, a curtain, I see inspiration in it. I don't see it as whatever it was originally packaged as. I see it as fabric that I can now turn into something else, whatever I'm envisioning. And I'm hoping to pass on that type of inspiration to other people. There's just so much fabric and crafting supplies around you. You just need to know how to look. My goal with this channel is to share my journey with sustainable sewing. So if you're into thrifting, sewing, or upcycling, please hit a subscribe on this channel and leave a like down below. I'd love to hear any of your upcycling techniques or how you got into that in the comment section below. Hope you'll find me next time, and thank you for watching. Bye!